Good afternoon, everyone. Before calling this meeting to order, I respectfully acknowledge on behalf of council and the community that the city of Pembroke resides on the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We thank the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years, and it is with this statement that we honor and respect the Algonquins on whose land we reside. Calling this meeting to order, are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in relation to the items on this board agenda? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion for the approval of this agenda. I have Christine, seconded by Mike. Those in favor? That is carried. In the package was a set of minutes, that of May 20th. Yeah. I'd entertain a motion for their approval. I have Mike, seconded by Pat. Those in favor? That is carried. Any business arising out of that? Seeing none, there's no delegations this afternoon. It brings us to the OPP Detachment Commander's report. So welcome, Detachment Commander.
Perfect. That was quick. Good afternoon, everyone. Before I get into the Q2 stats, I'm just going to go over a few things that I like to touch on. So staffing, we have 2 new recruits graduating tomorrow. Actually, as soon as this meeting's over, I'm headed to Aurelia. One of those 2 recruits is coming to Pembroke. He's actually local and was one of our auxiliary members. So very positive that that transition happened. And then the other one will be out in Killaloe. We recently ran a competition for our CSCU, which is our community street crime unit, to enhance that unit. We had 1 member that was successful and we'll be starting, I believe, next week. So positive there as well. And we are currently in the process of screening applications for 3 part-time special constable positions. 2 of them will be out of the Pembroke Courthouse and 1 will be out of the Killaloe Detachment. So again, very positive, trending in the right direction that way. Overtime. I know it's always a hot topic, so I did just want to touch on it because I had a meeting with our regional analysts as well as Superintendent Neufeld. It's a hot topic for communities as well as our commissioner. And year to date for our cluster, we have reduced overtime by 36%. And that is the continued trend. So since the beginning of 2026, we have been on a decline, but year to date, as of not last week, the week prior, 36% reduction. Bail compliance. I know I spoke about our offender management and apprehension program at the meetings previous. I just wanted to provide an update. I know I indicated that their stats would reflect in a column on this report. It's not reflecting right now. So I have put it forward to the people that look after the program that I derive all the stats from. So with that said, while they work on that, I don't want to take away from the great work that our OMAP officers are doing. I don't have a complete report from them, but just alone to put this in perspective, last week they arrested 4 people in relation to bail compliance. So numbers have, so compliance checks have increased and their work is, they're doing outstanding work. And I just wanted to put it out there that I did speak to them, and if there is interest from this board, they would be happy to attend a meeting to just kind of give an overview of what they do and how their role affects the community and safety. So we can certainly put that on the agenda for a future meeting if that's interested. Perfect. Another thing I wanted to bring up, and I know I did just touch briefly with Mayor Gervais on it, is in regards to grant writing and a grant writer. So I've already proposed this to the Petawawa Detachment Board. I will be proposing the same thing to the other 2 detachment boards that make up the UOV cluster. So there's a lot of money in grants that can be received by our municipalities. Grant report writing has changed since previous years, because previous years it used to be municipality based. Now it's municipalities collective to the detachment that they belong to. So it's not Pembroke writing for Pembroke grants. It's now collectively writing for all municipalities. So the issue that's happening is that grant writing, it's an art. It takes a lot of time. And if you haven't done it and you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to be successful. And it's not just the grant writing, it's all the follow-up pieces after that go along with these grants. There's follow-up reporting, depending on how long the grants are, whether it's monthly, quarterly, and then there's a final submission. The problem that we have right now is I'm the one writing the grants because that's what I did in my past life. And I don't have the time to write to the grants, nor do I have the time to keep up to the multitude of grants that our communities could receive. So what I'm proposing is the 4 boards have a discussion and potentially look at hiring a grant writer on contract. And it's not far-fetched because Lanark actually has done this. They hired one 2 years ago. And in 2 years, the grant writer successfully secured $2.1 million in grant funding for Lanark. Hawkesbury also just hired one. Now the terms of how they've hired them are different. That's not for me to get into, but and I know SG&G and Grenville are doing the same thing that I'm doing here today, is bringing it forward to their boards, just because we don't have people in the office that have the time to write these. So I have proposed it to Petawawa. I have a meeting on the 10th with the Killaloe board, and following that, the head Clare board. So I'm going to leave that with you for thought and consideration. It's just, like I said, there are a lot of grants that would be applicable to our communities. It's just the time it takes. And to put it in perspective, our MCERT unit, they're funded by grants. And we know how important our MCERT unit is. So it's things like that. That's why I'm bringing that up. So I'm going to move into the Q2 report. I hope you've all had a chance to review it. I'm not necessarily going to go page by page because, I mean, I'm quite content with what the results are. Obviously, there's always room for improvement, but again, I think the visibility and the proactive involvement that our officers doing is contributing to our trends. So if you noticed in those reports, our traffic stats are up. For the majority, our crime rate, whether that's property or violent crime, has reduced. I noticed that like B&Es were up, or sorry, yes, theft over 5,000 was up. That's contributed to stolen motor vehicles. One is genuinely stolen. One was essentially take without consent. So that's contributing to that increase. And again, like I said, I think our visibility and our presence within the community is deterring all of those factors, which if you look at our foot patrol and our vehicle patrol hours, they're increased and at a suitable rate, I believe. Our marine hours appear to be low, but it is the April to June period. So we weren't out on the water, but the boat has been out a significant amount and will be out over the long weekend. So very proactive in that regard. When it comes to property crime, if you look at the clearance rates, we have a little bit of work to do with our clearance rates. But what I will say with property crime, a lot of the investigations are in depth. They require production orders and surveillance and different types of stuff like that. So it is time consuming, but certainly on the radar as to areas to improve. I think all of you know one of my favorite stats, and the one that I'm definitely most encouraged about, is our youth crime. It's still sitting very low. So officers' involvement, it's contributing to the lack of.
Are there plans, Inspector, for more patrols at the schools?
Absolutely. When it kicks back off in September, we will continue. I know even while school's been out, we've been visiting some of the camps. There's been invites to the day camps and whatnot. So that's continued proactive. Mental health, as you can see, the calls have increased. I think that's just the reality of what we're dealing with at this time, at this day and age. But that also reinforces the importance of our mental health unit, our partnership with the MESA team, and all of the other stakeholders that are contributing to supporting these people that are in crisis. Overdoses. During Q2, we did have one fatal overdose, bringing the total number of overdoses reported to police or that police were involved in 2026 to 2. I mean, obviously, while they remain relatively low, each loss is significant. So, we'll do everything we can to continue to combat and contribute to not having those things. So that's the Q2 report in a nutshell. I'm certainly open to any questions. I did just miss one thing back to the offender management and apprehension program. I just want to touch on one of the arrests that our officers made. The CCTV downtown directly contributed to that. So the importance of those cameras and the continued need for them. I just wanted to highlight that.
Mike?
Inspector, congratulations on doubling the hours. So can we look forward to that in the upcoming quarters, that it will maintain that level of?
I would hope so, yes.
good.
And, I will say that data integrity, I know I have spoke about that before and the importance of it. And I think that is also a contributing factor. Is we are there, but our data integrity is much more in tune with what our officers are actually doing. So.
And one last question, ATV patrols on the Algonquin Trail. Are we on it?
We will be on it, yes. It's, I will just point out that we only have so many qualified operators.
Okay.
And we are trying to get members on the courses. And the problem with it is that two have to go out at a time, but absolutely on the radar, and we will work on it.
Thank you.
In regards to the overtime reduction, is there any gauge to ensure that this didn't affect the service when people needed it? Or like, how do you reduce the overtime by that much and not have people calling and not having a response? So she could let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a few factors. So one of the things that we're doing is swing shifts or different shifts. So there's peak calls for service times. And so we have an officer that will work a 3 to 3, which allows for that officer to come in at, say, 3 p.m. when calls are starting to hype up, and they will then take those calls for service. So the person that's done at 6 o'clock isn't getting that 4:30, 5 p.m. call. As well as, I will say, data integrity, scrutinizing it a little bit more, being more on top of things. I mean, we're humans, and human error does happen, but it's a bit of both. So and I will say that, getting more officers is obviously helping as well.
Good. And just follow up. Good news that we're getting a new recruit and a local. So they'll probably stay.
Hopefully.
Now, in regards to the grants, your work shouldn't follow you. If you were doing the grants, that shouldn't follow you. I wanted to know, so how much time, being someone who did the grants, like how many grants would be available to our detachment in a given year?
That's a great question. So you can get put on this grant reporting list where they will give you all the grants, and there's, I would say 20, 25, and it all depends where and there's more. It just depends where you fit in and when you can be a wordsmith with things.
Okay, so I guess I'm just wondering, would it be like a full-time hour contract for? No.
I don't think so, but it would depend on their ability and how they can. So we're unique, I would say, with our cluster because we have a variety of municipalities with different features and fun facts, right? So just because it may not fit Pembroke doesn't mean it doesn't necessarily fit Killaloe, but Pembroke still might be able to take advantage of it, right? So I think majority of the grants, if we found a way to wordsmith it, that we could meet the criteria, at least some of our municipalities. So and it just depends. Different grants take different times. So the ride grant that we have for 4 years, it wasn't crazy extensive, but the one that I was just trying to work on, it was for up to $600,000, and I was 18 hours in and I still didn't get it finished because I needed some supported documents from different stakeholders, and I wasn't able to get it. And that's just that one grant alone. So some are definitely more complex than others, but certainly there are a number of grants that are applicable to any of our municipalities.
And these contract positions, are you familiar with how their pay structure, like, do they take a percentage of the grants, or do they want?
So there's different ways. So Hawkesbury's doing it one way, Lanark's doing it another way. Madam Clerk, if you don't, you were speaking to, was it you that was speaking to
microphone back
Sorry
here.
to put you on the spot.
Who,
Were
sorry?
you speaking to the Lanark grant writer?
I was speaking to them on a number of different
Okay.
things. We do collaborate administratively as well, so there would be potential. I do believe we do fall under a lot of the same criteria.
So there's different structures.
ways.
I think ultimately comes down to the four boards and how they see fit. In saying that, the Lanark grant writer, she is extremely informative and very much willing to offer support, any questions that anyone may have.
And she works for the detachment.
So she now works for Lanark County,
Okay.
but for the 1.5 year period she was with for the board.
Okay.
The Hawkesbury one I can speak to. She is paid by the board and it does come out of the grants. The only issue I see that arises is that if you're not successful, there's still going to need to be a
Yeah.
means of payment.
Okay.
But
I
that's
look
how.
forward to more
Hawkesbury-
information on how the other boards
Yes.
feel. Okay, thank you.
Oh, so usually we don't, but I've invited, just so everyone's aware in the room, I've invited MyFM to be present because there's a lot of statistics here and whatnot, and it's an effort to try and get communication out to the public as to what transpires in our municipality. So Richard, I believe you have so it's Richard Evans. I think we're all familiar with who he is, but you have a question.
Chief, a number of concerned citizens have come to us recently and asked us why we aren't talking about the obvious increase in crime. The statistics that we're looking at here do not speak to that, as we know. A lot of people are saying that the mental health incidents perhaps would be better reflected as crimes. And so I can't obviously speak to that. So that's what brings me here today. Do you have any comment on that?
I think there's a couple questions in one there. I'm going to start at the end. Mental health is not a crime. Those are people in crisis and they're not included in crime because they are in crisis and they need support. And I think we can attest to all of the resources, the groups, the committees that we have in place in this community to try to support those people in crisis. You know, I actually did write a list of them down, just some of the tables and groups that I sit on, that some of the counselors sit on, you know, the situational table, the community safety working group, SUAP, advisory committee, harm reduction, all of those things in place to assist with things like that. So why are they not included in crime stats? Because it's mental health is not crime. Correct me if I'm wrong. You said something along the lines of these stats don't reflect the true crime that's happening here.
That seems to be the prevailing feeling, is that now these are just, you know, these are people that are coming to us asking us why we're not writing about it. So obviously I can't do that because you know, that's just not what we do. But there seems to be a feeling that the mental health issue, which revolves around homelessness and drug use, precipitates crime rather than the other way around. And that's the question that I have.
I guess, you know, not to get too far in depth, I would like to know the source, where they're getting their information to essentially negate these stats, because these stats are derived from our RMS reporting structure as well as our DAR, which is our daily activity reporting. So that's directly inclusive of what our officers are doing day to day within the city. So that would just be my response to that. Like, I can't comment on that piece when this is where the information is coming from. Again, homelessness is not included in here because it's not a crime. It's a societal issue that we're all trying to combat. And it's also, homelessness is not necessarily mental health all the time either. There are individuals that are put in situations that, you know, whether they've come into financial crisis and whatnot, like that's not mental health. So that's why homelessness isn't incorporated in here. Our drug activity, our drug response, that is included in here. And to suggest that those things all correlate, yeah, I'm sure there is some correlation, but it's not to say that everybody that's homeless has mental health problems and is creating drug problems. So that would be my response.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
And I saw a hand on this side somewhere. Or not. No? Okay, so if I can take a swing at some things. First up, in terms of to not to beat it to death, but in terms of the grant writer, just so that the board is aware, when I recently went to Smiths Falls with Board Chair Carmody, we had a discussion about it. So we're in a very preliminary stage of having that conversation because it would take willingness by all boards to explore it, if I can put it that way. And so that's my starting place because in my mind, at least, the similarities between Petawawa and Pembroke in terms of urban centers as opposed to more rural, and it's not to discount the rural portions of the detachment, but it's just, that's where I've chosen to start. So I just want the board to be aware of that. I'm not, doing whatever. I'm trying to push that forward, or the needle forward, as they say. In terms of in your report, Inspector, when you're talking about violent crime, just to note, so there is what I would submit is significant decreases in terms of the violent crime, like a negative 25%, a negative 8.9%, right? On, I don't know, 9 of 22 in our package, but I have no idea where it is in yours. I'm just noting that it's similar to what you had already provided to us in terms of a higher level approach to the report, is that in terms of violent crime, a positive, which is a negative decrease in those areas. So in terms of the next one, and I just want to get this right. So when I did note and I put in that there's an uptick in the theft over 5, so the theft over 5,000, that's attributed in part at least to stolen vehicles.
So yeah, I have it here. So one was a stolen vehicle, high-end stolen vehicle. One was a take motor vehicle without consent, which does get recorded as a stolen vehicle. And one, so the increase, because it was, the previous quarter was 3, this quarter was, or sorry, the previous quarter from 2025 was 3, and this year was 6. And the third one was actually data integrity. It was an elderly male that forgot where he parked his vehicle. So it came in as a stolen vehicle. So it needs to be corrected, which it has since. And that's why we review these stats. That's why we go over these things to correct it. So it would technically be 5 instead of 6 for this reporting.
Okay, so a little bit later, the board's going to be talking about use of funds to purchase different items and whatnot. And I guess where I'm going with it is it still an issue about stolen vehicles, whether it be Toyotas for whatever reason or others? Is that still an issue or a concern to yourselves, or?
I think it's always a concern.
Okay.
Are we seeing an uptake right now? No. I
Yeah,
just
no,
don't
not-
want to put it out there and then tomorrow a stolen vehicle happens, right? Like,
No, fair enough. I'm just trying to get a beat
Mhm.
on, like, as the superintendent would always say, one crime is one crime too many. I get that. I'm just trying to
exactly. Yeah.
put a beat on what is taking place.
It is not the flavor right now. No.
Okay. And then again, to the question from Mr. Evans is, like I see under drug crime, there's a reduction. It's saying negative 64%, which I'm not trying to jinx it or whatever. And again, one crime is one crime too many, but
Mhm.
the trends seem to be favorable, if I can express it that way. And if I can just say this, that like kudos to you folks in terms of the what I'll call patrol hours. Like, it's not just a small uptick, it's a significant uptick in terms of the hours being spent, both cruiser and foot. Significant efforts to be seen, and I certainly see you all over the place. So kudos to you for that as well. In terms of the overdose, just to put it in perspective for the board. So what the inspector is telling you is there's a whole assortment of different committees that a number of us sit on in different capacities, different hats, trying to address homelessness, addiction, deal with a whole assortment of different concern, mental health and so forth. So one of them is, so I attend when I can attend, and the rest of the time the CAO is very good to give me the report, and I'm happy to share it with you. It's from the Renfrew County Drug Strategy. So you'll recall back March 2024, some overdoses started to happen. We came together, MCERT and the paramedics came together and did boots on the ground, took initiatives right off the get-go. Another thing that happened is the health unit started this particular strategy of having anyone that might potentially even be related or influenced or have anything to do with drug addiction and so forth came together. And I was having this conversation, I'm going to share it with the board. I had this conversation with the inspector. Is obviously their stats are reflective of when the OPP come in contact with whatever the subject matter might be. These folks is the Renfrew County Drug Strategy folks, in other words, the paramedics and so forth. So there's similarities, but obviously it's where's the source coming from. And so I did have this conversation with the CEO, and as I have no issue sharing this with you, or providing you with the report. But in Pembroke, in terms of in the last report, they were talking about deaths per postal code because that's how they're tracking it. And so they had 4 for Pembroke deaths due to drug toxicity. But what was interesting is, and in terms of what I think Mr. Evans is saying, is that there's, people, some individuals are saying to him, some individuals are talking to him, and the source isn't known. But it was interesting from this report is the number of individuals due to suspected drug toxicity. Out of all of the incidents that was reported in this report, 8 of them were in a private residence. So if you think about it, like this business of individual stereotyping, saying all the different individuals that are overdosing are in the bush somewhere. No, 8 of the 12 were in a residence at the time that presumably the paramedics arrived. So there's a lot of, I would submit to this board, there's a lot of conjecture, a lot of comments as to what's taking place, but the statistics are what they are. These people have nothing to gain by recording this and giving it to us so that we can make informed decisions about what we're doing. We as a municipality, we as in the OPP and so forth, so that it's data driven, not by conjecture. And this isn't, I'm not criticizing Mr. Evans or anything like that. I'm just trying to get it across to whoever it is that's listening or saying things. You look at what I do is I look at the numbers, and I know Mike attends with me to the community watch meetings, and some will say, well, the mayor is saying these numbers. Well, I'm basing it upon what I'm given, and it's analytical. It's here's what the numbers are. It's not something that I invented or anything like that. But yet there's individuals, oh no, your numbers are wrong. Well, I don't know where they get their numbers then. So that's my little rant on the subject. Pat?
Yeah, not to belabor it, but just to piggyback on what the mayor and the chair, that rhymes, said, there is no fudging of numbers here. And I know sometimes the public perception, oh, they must be hiding something. And I'm going to say that because I know I've heard people that are not necessarily conspiracy type people, but people that just like to think we're hiding stuff, and we're not. And obviously these are statistics. We're happy too if things are doing better. And if they're not, we're going to make sure we change things to do better. And that's what we've been doing with Mesa and all the mental health workers. And yeah, like maybe something does happen. I know on my street a couple of years ago, there was a stabbing right in front of my house. I do believe that was a mental health issue too. And I mean, if you read any of the big cases where there's mental health, they don't treat those individuals like they're guilty criminals either. And sometimes, we wish they did, because maybe it's a much more serious crime than what we're seeing in our community. So it is a sad fact. And yes, it looks criminal if someone's trespassing or maybe sleeping on your porch. That's the sickness. And unfortunately, some people are put out, and it is scary for them because they don't understand, they don't know the individual. But trust me when I say, and I mean, it is an election year, so we're going to hear a lot more of it coming. They would like to throw things and say, we know you're hiding things or there's conspiracy, but there definitely is not. And I am so happy to see the numbers going down. And thank you. Thank you for your report.
Is there any further questions for the inspector? Failing which, are we going to the staff surgeon for anything?
Okay, sorry, and thank you. One, I didn't want to overstep and speak out of turn when you're talking to the inspector, but specific to the ATVs, I was actually in a meeting yesterday And we had reached out to, because like the inspector said, we only have a handful of people who are actually trained operators. So we were actually speaking with the time team who said that they will, once we're able to, because of the summer and all of our obligations, but they will be able to work with us to get those ATVs out. So in response to that. So I apologize that it took me so long to respond to that, but I didn't want to speak out of turn there. Also, the schools that you had spoke of. So I just wanted to highlight, as this goes back to April to June. So one of the things I did want to highlight back then was the fun nights that we had attended, the fun nights, the school patrols, the bike rodeo, I believe we did in the city of Pembroke as well. And I do know, in speaking with the officers, like that, the inspector, so like that is going to continue. It's already requested. We already have some commitments to do that. So that is definitely something that will continue. And it's not just specific. I don't know if you remember a couple years ago, like we had one officer who would be doing that. With these school visits as well, we have like every officer involved and going, and they're wanting to do presentations. So that will continue. And like I said, it's not just one. We're continuing our officers to get in and be visible. You're welcome on that. Yes, sorry. And the new recruits, that's one of the, when they first get here, that is one of our things. Like they go in and they introduce themselves. They introduce themselves to not only, well, the staff, so they know we're in there, but also the kids, and definitely be visible that way. For highlights, I wanted to bring to the attention, so it goes with our patrol hours, our visibility. These were not response, these were our proactive ones that I like to highlight. So in May, one of our officers stopped an individual where we ended up seizing a loaded handgun as well as firearms and drugs in the city of Pembroke. And then actually on the same weekend, there was also a recovered stolen vehicle out of a proactive traffic stop, as well as drugs then. So I just wanted to highlight those, that those are not only, I mean, yes, we're responsive, but these are proactive in our officers being out there, and as a result of that, achieving those results. Thank you.
Through the chair, there was a stop that I witnessed, and then I know it hit social media because there was a lot of talk about it. It was a large transport truck. It was on Highway 41 coming towards the city at Irving. And there was an officer. When I saw it, there was an officer climbed up on the side of the truck talking to whoever was driving. And then apparently hours later, there was other officers, maybe a dog. Is that one of those incidents? It was a large transport.
Not specific to this. And I actually, that it's not ringing a bell for me, which specific one you're.
This was about a month ago. I mean, probably I'm seeing other people say they saw it too, but I saw it happen. And then there was a bunch of posts on Facebook about the fact that people saw it hours later too. So you don't really know.
No, that one doesn't stand out. I can look into it.
Yeah, no, I just was curious if it was one of those.
No.
Okay.
These are separate.
Okay, thank you.
And then just in terms of what you're saying, Staff Sergeant, in terms of being proactive, is just even and it goes back to this foot patrol business of at the multicultural event, being seen, being around, being there, so if people want to, have a conversation with an officer or whatever, you're visible, you're there, ready to engage, that sort of thing.
Yes, and not only are we having so we assign officers such as the Pembroke Multicultural event or the Pembroke Night Market back in this quarter, where it's that, as well as the sergeants are directing their officers upon their free time to make sure to go out and be visible at these events. So they're not only like some officers choose to on their own, but we're also providing clear direction to go and to do that, and also making them aware this event is going on. Please make yourself visible and go introduce yourselves.
Okay, so any other, Des?
Can I ask a question? So I think it was last meeting we were talking about recruitment, and I didn't really have that much knowledge into what the auxiliary was about, so I kind of started to do some digging. Could the auxiliary be a way that we help with recruitment? Because like the auxiliary, you don't, from what I understand, and you guys can correct me, but it's not the same level of education as an officer. And we can kind of get them into the system, get them, and then hopefully then from there, they choose to take a path in the OPP career stream. And if we can train them up here locally under the auxiliary, the likelihood that they come back is strong. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
And either of you can answer.
Yes, good. Take a whack at it. No, absolutely. You're 100% correct. There are some components that they do have to meet in order to be hired, but it's a great idea because like I just spoke about the recruit that is coming back. It's so nice to have a local who knows the area, knows the community. So it's not bringing them in, we're just reintegrating them into a different role. So how does the board help with recruiting? That I don't really have a good answer unless my partner does. How we recruit them, whether it's your visibility at your booths or your engagement within the community. I'm just not sure what that would look like.
Could we not, like on our social media page, be promoting the
Absolutely.
auxiliary stuff at our booths, have auxiliary applications? Because that can also be used, like not in all circumstances, but in like those kind of PR circumstances when you go to the multicultural event and the downtown patrols, like you can send auxiliary out, could you not?
Oh, absolutely.
As a presence?
Absolutely. And they are utilized for that. Like you'll see them at the parades and
Yep.
different things like that. And just when you were saying the promotional material and whatnot, Superintendent Neufeld literally walks around with a QR code on the back of his phone. I should get my hands on some of these because literally it's a QR because his slogan is ABR, always be recruiting.
Yeah.
So
That's what I do for my work.
yeah, so he has a QR code. So I'm actually headed to Aurelia, so maybe I can get my hands on some of those QR codes and have them for you guys to be able to utilize it. Because when you click on that, it's not just auxiliary; it takes you to the recruiting page. So yes, you might be promoting the auxiliary, but they might get to the page and go, "Oh, okay,
I can do all of this."
Yes, absolutely. So I will try to track down some of.
Okay.
Yeah, great question. Thanks, Des.
No problem.
So just further to that, I've known about the auxiliary for many years now. I've been kind of on the board a while. And I have also some personal people in my life that have gone through the auxiliary and are currently an OPP officer. But I do recall when they were doing the training, going to our Aurelia, I believe, to do some actual training to become an auxiliary officer. So it is a great place to start and likely a great place for people that are curious about becoming a police officer. So I think anything that we can do as a board to promote that aspect as well would be really good. Thanks.
Sorry, there's currently a drive on. I just saw it actually on social media yesterday, I believe, for auxiliary members for OPP. So I'm sure they would have resources as well. And I get what we were saying, because I think we talked about this last meeting as well. Just the fact that we do have people who go out and set up, but what you're saying, maybe more specifically, we could also have an auxiliary member there to talk about different options, not just as, oh, come be an officer with us or constable. So.
Well, the idea came kind of after, so I attended the Zone 2 meeting in Carleton Place back in June, and that idea came because the OPP were there and the Ottawa was there, and they were talking about how recruiting for the police is a lot harder. It's not like a one and done now. It's Ottawa police is like they have a Facebook group and it's very relational now to getting them to that point. And so I started doing some research and I'm like, well, if we can get them in at the auxiliary level, that's something that we can kind of do at the local level, which entices people to then want to come back and be officers in this community instead of them applying up here and then us hoping through a lottery that we get one of those officers.
And to your point, Des, like at the expo, there was a auxiliary officer there. I'm sure you came across her because I think we were all there. And she was auxiliary and wishes to become an OPP officer. And this was her it was an opportunity because we're all ambassadors, right? And so it was an opportunity to have a conversation with her, see where her aspirations were, why was she doing what she was doing, that sort of thing. So certainly it seems to be a viable way of trying to get individuals fast tracking or tracking through that particular process. Yeah. Okay. So if there's no other questions, we'll move on from 8 to number 9, dealing with new business. So first up is just to let everyone know about again, another opportunity, another situation of building relationships is the Kids and Cops Fishing Derby, August 8th. It starts at 9 o'clock at the waterfront. And again, kudos to the officers and everyone involved that puts that on. We provide just a small monetary donation to try and assist, but they get donations, as I recall, from Canadian Tire and others to make it happen. Just it's really rewarding to see so many individuals out there with their children and so forth, and building the relationships because the officers are there, and so the officers are not to be scared of or fearful of, and build some relationships there. So if anyone's available, August 8th at 9 at the waterfront near where the playground equipment is at the marina area. And then brings us to 9B, a report from our clerk on merchandising that we started to talk about that the last meeting.
Thank you and good afternoon. Just a brief report in front of the board for consideration. As every year passes, we attend various events and give out public relation materials, and those are used by the public. And I know that the board likes to, have certain themes around their swag, so to say, along with utility and safety being a focus. So just wanted to give the board a brief update on, where we stand with our current supplies. This year we tried, or last year at the end of the year, we ordered some new swag, including reflective armbands that can be worn on a leg or an arm, biking, walking, so on and so forth. And those have done really well. We only have 50 left, and wireless charging pads. So those were, to encourage and ensure that people had a means to charge their cell phones, even when they weren't with electricity. So those were very popular, and we have none of those left. A few other numbers for what is in stock. And then it has been recommended by a few members of the board, and I'm bringing it to the board for consideration, some new opportunities to purchase RFID Street Smart pouches. And these are a little more expensive. However, due to the uptake in vehicles being stolen through, fobs being scanned, as I understand it, and then, a car can be stolen without actually keys being in it. These RFID patches limit that, and therefore help to mitigate these concerns of having a vehicle stolen when you're in your house and your vehicle's in your driveway. And then since the wireless charging pads were so popular, we've actually had people asking to have them in their swag stuff because the public was asking for them, a recommendation to purchase some of those. Now the numbers are lower simply because the items are, more intricate and electronic. So they are a little more expensive, but I have sought quotes and gotten those ahead of time. However, simply a recommendation from staff based on, what we can order locally and what we think would be, a good fit for what we have on hand in inventory. But certainly open to getting direction from the board if we'd like to go with that. Those two items at those numbers fit within our budget, or open to researching any other options that the board may wish to be explored.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Pat?
Well, not that I don't like those items, but 25 or 50 items is really insignificant. It's not. Christine and I, when we got, I'll call you Christine anyway. When we were at the show at the expo, they were gone. Like they were when we got there pretty much, because I think the people that were involved in the show, that's fine because they go around and mingle too in between the shows. They were gone by the time we got there. So if you only get 25 or 50, I really don't even think it's worth having them. If you can't have a large amount and you can't afford to get a large amount, I wouldn't get any, to be honest, because they're going to be gone. You know, what's 25 when you have 1,000 people walking by your table? The reflective armbands were pretty much dead. A lot of them were dead. The armbands, the ones that are left, like I think every second or third one might have worked, but not very well, very dim. So I think they've been there for a long time, but I don't know if we, you know, I mean, I don't want us to be appearing like we're wasting money on stuff that goes in the garbage, or when people are purging their households, they go in the dump, you know, like, so I think when we buy things, we really need to think, what are they going to use? You know, because I really do think a lot of this stuff that people collect at trade shows isn't used. So I think we need to put a little more thought into what we're buying and make sure it's not going to end up at the recycle state waste management site. So thanks.
Christine?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, I have to agree with Pat on that. It's a pretty insignificant number that we'd be able to purchase. The only way I could see it working is a different strategy, not just handing it out randomly to everybody that asks, but maybe do a draw. So the Handy Bus does that. You're getting people to your booth, you get a chance to talk to them about the work you do and say, by the way, would you like to enter your name in a draw, and then draw for 10 of them or whatever, you know, because it is a nice little thing to have. And of course, having a backup for charging your phone is a really great idea. So I would, if we did something like that, I would be in favor of the charging pads. The smart pouches, not so much really, I don't think.
Des? Anything? No?
I would agree. I'd rather buy more of one thing if we're using it as a promotional material to get the name out and get engagement with the board and the police service.
So that the board is aware, and I understand what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying, not wasting money and so forth. At the conclusion of this year, the board does not carry a reserve, and so that those funds will go into the general surplus of the city of Pembroke, and that's where those funds will be, not in a police board. You know, let's save it up, and next year we're going to buy. We'll have enough money then to buy something. That won't happen. There is no reserve like that. Christine?
Just wondering, have we ever gone with whistles, or is that even a thing anymore? Like, you know, if you're in a crisis or.
I think they need to be purposeful. There need to be a purpose behind them, whether it's for a life jacket or something.
I also feel like that might be dangerous at a public event. All the kids with whistles.
How about earplugs then? Here's your earplugs.
What about pens? Like I think they're probably fairly inexpensive, and it says the name. I would say any money we have, just invest in some pens. I mean, people are always grabbing pens off.
And
There, see?
Is that the general consensus, is some pens?
I
When,
think so.
when you're saying about everybody whistling, it reminds me every time I go to Cabela's, everyone's doing the pop gun thing. Anyways.
I got my mom a pen in Vegas 17 years ago when we were there. And just the other day, she said, Pat, could you bring me another pen? My one from Vegas finally ran out of ink.
Wow. Madam Clerk?
yes, thank you, Chair. So wonderful, great, noted. And then just through you, Chair, for sure, we certainly get the most bang for our buck at Expo. That's the most exposure for the board. But for consideration as well, so we do have that, I believe it's $1,500 that is earmarked for swag. And we do have another meeting. So I can bring back some more options, noting that this is a general consensus. And then for consideration, you know, we do give out items throughout the year. If we were to go with a more expensive item like a charger or such, we could strategically pick like a time. So say for a golf tournament, we're always asked for, oh, do you have any swag? So, that's going in one prize basket. So we'd give out one there. But I can certainly, knowing that this is the general consensus, take a look at some other options to have, more of an inventory for the price. And I'll bring that back in September.
Okay, thank you. There's no correspondence, not really a bylaw, but just so that the board is aware, Madam Clerk and I are working on policy in respect to inspector evaluation underneath the new legislation. It's advisable to have an actual written policy as opposed to the more informal approach that has been taken in the past. So there is something coming forward. Brings us to the next meeting, as my understanding is what's in the agenda, September 23rd at 1 at this location. And with all that being said, I entertain a motion for an adjournment. I have Christine, seconded by Mike. Those in favor, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.